Today, we're talking about something that I learned about a couple of years ago, but it finally registered pendulums. Now, if you haven't read the book Reality Transurfing, I highly recommend you get that book. It's by Vladimir Zealand. And I first heard about it from one of my teachers, Quasi Joe here, probably in 2019. And it resonated with me because it talked about energy. And at that time, I was learning about energy and how everything is energy and what I was manifesting in my life, all those things. But finally, I started to understand how pendulums affect us in our life and how they actually might be taking away your voice. So let's talk about that. So what is a pendulum? Now, there are constructive pendulums, and this is what I've learned from Reality Transurfing. There are constructive pendulums and there are destructive pendulums. When you look at political things happening across the world, especially if you're in the US now, it could be considered constructive. It could also be considered destructive, but it feeds on the energy of the people. Now, I'm going to use my necklace. Just think of what a pendulum is. And I often use this in my decision makings. Some people think, wow, what are you doing? Or you're moving it. But if I even just say, hey, my name is Priya, it starts moving clockwise. And I'm not moving it. And some of you might be familiar with this. Some of you might think, what the heck is this? But it is just energy. Now, if I even say something, all right, my name is Joe, guess what? It is moving counterclockwise direction. So it's telling me no. So I essentially use necklaces. I have pendulums. You can get them at any metaphysical store, and they're really feeling the energy of the moment. Now let's talk about pendulums as it relates to our voice, as it relates to energy, as it relates to stealing our energy. Now, just think about this as I was talking about even before with politics. One person might have a viewpoint, and it's just one person. But then that one person gets another person, gathers another person, and now they're getting a movement started. And that pendulum essentially starts getting momentum. Then before you know it, you think, wow, everybody's talking about this, or it's created such momentum in the news or in society. But really, it's energy playing on other people. Now, like I said, there are constructive pendulums and there are destructive pendulums. And I realized the other day how many times in my life I got caught up in destructive pendulums. And it could even just be one person. One person has that much energy. And when you think about it, as far as relationships and toxic relationships, I got caught up in the other person's pendulum. They were looping me in. So essentially, in a toxic relationship, this person was moving with their momentum. I didn't grab on at first. And then all of a sudden I did. And then next thing you know, I was vibrating at their energy. I was saying yes to the things I really didn't want to say yes to. I had lost my voice in that relationship. And what I realized in that moment is that I was caught up in that person's pendulum. There are constructive ones. When you become part of a human rights organization and you're trying to save people and there's a civic duty around it, I personally believe that is a constructive pendulum. Now, when you're in the pendulum of hurting people, where there's intention around destroying, then yeah, you're in a destructive pendulum. And I would say that maybe it is dependent on the person who is in the pendulum and what their viewpoint is about whether it is destructive or constructive. That is for you to discern. That's why bringing awareness to it, saying, hey, right now, am I caught up in a pendulum, or what is this? For me, the realization came a couple of weeks ago, even just with getting stuff done in my house. There was a person who did work in my house and they didn't really complete it to its end. And I found myself fighting to get this done, fighting to get that done. And then before I knew it, this person was even ghosting me and we had paid. So it was creating more irritation. There is a talent, there is an art to handling a pendulum. Now, when you start to see that that energy is gathering momentum in your life and that you're getting irritated by it, that maybe you're going to bed with that irritation, you're waking up with that irritation. Chances are you are caught in that pendulum. And in my case, in this specific instance, I was caught in this person's pendulum. The key to, let's just say, making that pendulum stop, to make it stop swinging and to stay still and to actually make it, I want to say go away because everything is energy, is to stop giving it importance, to realize and say to yourself, you know what, this is not that important to me. When I did that, all of a sudden things started to lift. When I was in that person's pendulum, when I was irritated, more things started to go wrong in my house. All of a sudden, the heater was broken. I had the fire department at my house at 4 a.m. for a carbon monoxide alarm. The fan was malfunctioning. The stove was malfunctioning. Things were malfunctioning. And I had enough awareness to say, okay, all of these things are malfunctioning at once. What about my energy is causing this? What is happening? And it was the simple person that I was allowing to feed off of my energy that was creating this. The minute, and I'm telling you, the minute I said, and I recognized that this was a destructive pendulum in my life, and you know what, this is no longer important to me, things started to fix. All of a sudden, things that felt really heavy in my house, and oh my gosh, how am I going to get this fixed? And this plumbing issue, this heater issue, within hours, there was resolution. This is how pendulums work. So imagine, I'm just talking about work in my house. Imagine how a pendulum works in your energy field to steal your voice, to essentially take away every part of you that is you, so that you're accommodating to that pendulum. Now, this could be a person. This could be work. This could be a collective mission. This could be a part of an organization that you think is for the good, but meanwhile, it's not, because it's ending up as stress in your body. Now, I want to talk a little bit. I just gave you an example of a destructive pendulum. Let's talk about a constructive pendulum. I talk about Quasi. And Quasi has built this community of and trying to help empower people to really build lives that they want, to really not play small. And without understanding Quasi's teachings from 2019, I probably wouldn't be here today speaking about my truth on a YouTube channel where I essentially don't know who's listening. He made me understand that there are constructive pendulums, and what I'm doing when I give my message about speaking my truth, about unmuting and helping other women or males to unmute as well, is that I'm creating a constructive pendulum that allows people to find their voice, especially if you haven't had a voice your entire life. So I want you to think about some of the constructive pendulums in your life. It could be your church, that you've got this community, that you're doing so much good in the community and you're filled up with light by it, and you're filled up with service and what you're doing for people. Here's another example. It could be a financial opportunity that all of a sudden is helping you to increase your investments. You notice that your retirement is going up, or your interest rate in your account has gone up, and now that you're getting more interest every month. Those could be constructive pendulums. I was also part of a destructive pendulum where financial investment was involved. This was part of a Bitcoin investment. If you're familiar with it, it's called Novatech, driven by Cynthia and Eddie Petian. So I'm talking about it here. And you might be one of the people that lost money in Novatech. Unfortunately, they scammed people, and they had done it before. They created such momentum because the return on investment every week, and I invested $5,000, but I know people who had invested $50,000. But the ROI every week was like 3%, 4%. There were some weeks where I was getting $4,000 investment, return on investment. So by the end of it, before it collapsed, before they ran away with our money, I had close to $50,000 in reserves there, even though I had only invested 5. It had created such momentum. Everybody placed such importance on that, on Novatech. People took money out of retirement and put it all into Novatech because that's the momentum it had built. And then, just in 1 second, Cynthia and Eddie Petion shut it down and took all the money. And to today, I don't believe that they're anywhere to be found. And that left a lot of people disempowered, mistrustful of Bitcoin or crypto or any of that stuff. So you can see how pendulums work. Their energies moving in and out to essentially control us or support us. So when you say yes to something and then later realize that it wasn't even your decision, like and sometimes you might have even said this to yourself, I don't know what it was. It was like I got caught up in this energy and it just swept me away. Chances are you got caught up in a pendulum. And if it wasn't for your highest good, it's possible that it was a destructive pendulum. And this often comes in the shape of relationships. Now, I want to just kind of go a little bit into, so pendulums are energetic thought structures. I could easily start a movement now just with the thought structure, get one person on board. Then maybe I'm going to get 2. Then maybe I'm going to get my entire community and maybe my entire state and then the entire country. It's formed. A pendulum is formed when a group of people put energy into the same idea, belief, or cause, right? Corporate culture, there's family expectations, religious expectations, hustle culture. Just even thinking about women and us at midlife, what we're expected to do. These are thought structures. Pendulums thrive on your energy, especially your emotional reaction. So this is the key. When that pendulum is going around and you put more energy into it, that pendulum is going to swing more. It's going to thrive off that energy. It's going to gather more energy, right? Especially emotional reactions. And when you get pulled in, you stop checking in with your own resonance. We are energetic beings. You can't doubt that. We are energetic beings. But when it catches you, it's almost like you detach from who you are, like I said, and you get caught up in the energy of that. You say yes to everything that you've said, I'm not saying yes to. How many times when I was in that relationship, I said, no more benefit of the doubt. Yet I got caught up in it. And I just always said to myself, I don't know how I'm here. It's almost like I can't get out of it. I don't know. And this was one person. Can one person have that effect on your ability to find your voice, lose your voice, speak your mind? Absolutely. That is what a destructive pendulum does. This is just a little episode on pendulums just to make you aware of what they are. And I'm going to go deeper into them. But the antidote to a pendulum, especially a destructive one, is awareness. Absolute awareness. Notice when you're feeling pulled, right? When the pressure feels collective. It's not personal. It doesn't feel like yours. When you're in this place where I don't know why I'm making this decision, I just feel like I'm being forced into it. You're caught in a pendulum. Step back and ask, okay, is this my truth or is this a pendulum? Is this a constructive pendulum? Is this a destructive pendulum? That's what I want you to start asking from now on. When you stop feeding it, it loses power. It's almost like it disappears from your life. So in the past couple of months, the pendulums in my life, destructive ones, have shown up with a couple of people. And in the past, they kept showing up. I kept seeing them and I kept saying, why are they showing up? But they kept reaching out. And it's because every time I saw them or every time there was an interaction, I leaned into it. I got caught into the energy of their energy. So then I actually fueled it some more. But in the past couple of months, and especially when I give you the instance of the person who was doing work in my house, when I decided this is no longer important to me, they essentially disappeared from my life. It's pretty amazing that I don't even see them anymore. It's like they disappeared because I stopped placing importance on them. And guess what happened as a result of me removing these destructive pendulums from my life? These constructive ones started to come into my life. Constructive pendulums in the way of entrepreneurial coaching groups or other groups that are supporting business ideas, even my healing space. If there's anything that you can gather from this video, is to just become aware and ask yourself, is this a pendulum that I'm caught up in right now? Is this destructive? Is this constructive? Is this feeding me or is this depleting me? Those are the things that I want you to ask yourself and be aware of in the next week. And I want you to comment below and let me know your thoughts around pendulums and whether anything has shifted by bringing awareness to it. See you in the next video.